Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to do an approach and follow the ILS in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I'm going to be trying to teach this without using the approach plate so I can try to kind of make it easier for beginners to understand. So I'm just going to show you what you're going to have to do with the FMC to get this to work while you're still on the ground before you take off. So you're going to go to your pause init here, click on the GPS position right here, this little button, throw it in there. Reference airport, I'm at KROC, so I'm going to type in KROC, put it in reference airport here, route, there we go, KROC, and then into origin, destination, I'm going to be flying to Toronto, so CYYZ, put that in destination there, and then you'll see the route pop up here in about a second, just to load here. I'm going to go to perf init, you put in the departure and the arrival, you're just going to put in, or you're just going to hit execute right here. So cruising altitude, I'm going to be at 15,000 feet, so 150, put that in there. Cost index and reserves, it's not really important for flight sim, but I'm just going to put in just 110 here. Thrust limit, this doesn't really matter. Takeoff, you're just going to make sure your V speeds are set in here. It should automatically fill this out for you. And then the most important page for the approach is going to be the DEP ARR and the legs here. So departure arrival. If you're using ATC, it's going to tell you, they're going to tell you what runway and what arrival you're going to use. So they'll say, for example, cleared ILS 06 by the Duvos 3 arrival. So then you just hit 06 and then Duvos 3, and then you hit execute. If you're not using ATC, you can select whatever runway, whatever arrival you want to use. I'm probably just going to use 06 left with the, I'll just say the Duvos 3 arrival. And I'll show you guys how to do that, or I'll show you guys what that looks like once we get up at our cruising altitude and I'm pretty close to the airport. Another thing, you're going to want to make sure you have LNAV and VNAV turned on while you're doing your flight. That way it'll follow the pink line, this line right here, instead of you having to set a bunch of headings. So I'm not going to use a heading at all. I'm just going to use LNAV to follow the pink line, and then VNAV is going to be vertical, so it's going to take me from my cruising altitude down to the glide slope once we get to Toronto here. So I'm just going to take off, and I will see you guys when I'm up in the air. Okay, so I'm here at 15,000 feet at my cruising altitude at around 64-ish miles away from Toronto. So I'm going to start setting up the approach now, and I'll show you guys how to do that. So departure arrivals page, and then arrival, and then you put in the runway you're going to be landing on and the arrival you're going to be using. Once again, if you're using ATC, then you'll put this in when they tell you to, and you'll put in what they tell you to. For my case, I'm going to be using ATC, so I'm just going to use 6 left here. And then the arrival, I'm just going to use box and 5 here. And then you're going to hit execute. And then you'll see over here, once you hit execute, oops, wrong way, you'll see the approach come up here. So we're going to go to Urcum here, then to Boxum, then Duvos, then Deadgo. And then we're going to go to Urbis, and then I can't really read those there, but then you check over here, legs, so Urcum, Boxum, Duvos, Deadgo, Urbis, which is the same as here, so this is correct. Now these numbers on the side here, the far right ones, the big ones, these are going to be the altitudes you're going to be setting in your autopilot panel right here. So 12,000A means 12,000 above. If it's just 12,000, you want to be at 12,000 at this waypoint. If it's 12,000A, you want to be 12,000 or above at this waypoint. I'm just going to go to 12,000. So at Duvos, we're going to want to be at 12,000. Debgo 8,000, and then 8,000 all the way up to Ulipi, when we're going to want to be at 3,000 or above. So we'll start descending once we get to Dunop down to 3,000 for Ulipi. And then at Ulipi, that's when we're going to start to intercept the localizer. So if you were to take the runway you're going to be landing on, and you're going to draw an imaginary line from the center line all the way out, that's the line you're going to be intercepting. That's what the localizer is going to be. So you're going to have localizer mode on. I'll show you guys like when you want to turn it on, but you're going to have localizer mode on, and then once you get towards that line, basically once you get over that line, you'll intercept the localizer, that imaginary line that you drew. And then the plane's going to follow that imaginary line all the way into the airport, and then that imaginary line is going to pop up down here as well. So it'll be a bunch of dots here, and then a line right down the middle, and there'll be a little diamond, and that diamond you want to keep right in the middle, and the autopilot will try to do that for you if you have it on. And then it's going to be the same thing with the glide slope, except the glide slope is vertical instead of horizontal. So once you intercept the glide slope, it'll show up here, just like the one on the bottom down here, and it'll be a little diamond that you're going to want to keep on the big white line in the middle. And what it's telling us here is ULIP is the start of our final rate right over here. So what it's telling us here is we're going to want to be at 3,000 feet to intercept that glide slope. So we want to make sure we are down to 3,000 feet once we get over there. And then we're going to want to intercept the localizer, and then once the localizer is intercepted, that's when we can turn on approach mode, which will then follow down the glide slope. Now, I don't really want to just sit here and fly this entire approach because I'm trying to make this sort of a quick tutorial, so I'm just going to skip the initial waypoints here where I descend down to 12 and then descend down to 8, but we do want to be at 8,000 by Dunup, so we'll get down to 8,000 by Dunup. And then we'll get down to 3,000 by ULIP. So the way I did that was I just selected ULIP on my legs page, and then I went all the way to the first waypoint, which was Urkum, and I just clicked on it. So clicked ULIP here, brought it down to the bottom, and then I went all the way back to Urkum, and I clicked the button for Urkum, and it just replaces the waypoint. So I'm just going to go, instead of going all the way around here, I'm just going to go direct over here. We're around 50 miles away, so we should start a descent down to 8,000. So I'm going to say 8,000 feet. Whoops, way past it. So 8,000 feet in here, and then I can click on it, and that'll be altitude intervention, so that way the plane actually does descend. You want to make sure you do click it. If you're having problems with getting it to descend, it's probably because you didn't click this button here. So make sure you set your altitude and you click the altitude intervention, and then it'll get you down to your desired altitude for each waypoint. And you can actually see now the localizer and glide slope did pop up on my PFD here. It's just because I'm getting kind of close to the airport now. You don't really want to worry about this until you're actually turning on to final and getting on final here, but I'm going to kind of go over what I explained before. So basically, this is telling me I am too far out to the right here, so it's telling me to turn left, which does make sense because if you're coming in this way, we are out to the right here. So if we were on approach here, we would need to turn left. And then once we're right on the imaginary line we drew from the center of the runway, this little pink triangle will move over to the center right here once we're right on it. And then the same thing with the glide slope. You should see it pop up pretty soon, but it'll be a little diamond just like that. And if we're too high, it will show up down here telling us we need to descend. If we're too low, it'll show up over here telling us we need to climb. And basically you're just trying to get it right in the center here, just like the localizer. So this line right here in the middle, it would represent our imaginary line we drew from the center of the runway all the way out. If you have the approach set up correctly, autopilot will pretty much do that for you. It'll set you up on the imaginary line, it'll set you up on the glide slope as well. So you can actually see right there the pink triangle is moving across here as we cross our imaginary line that would be right here, which actually is a physical line in this, but as we cross the center line of the runway, you can actually see this move over. Now we're going to use that once we get over here in order to line ourselves up with the runway. And we're getting pretty close to Dunup now, so we're going to set 3,000 in the altitude. Since that's where we want to be at ULIP, we want to be at 3,000 again right here. So we're just setting 3,000 in here, and we're going to get ready once we get over to Dunup. going to click the altitude intervention. It should take us down to 3,000 for Ulippi. Okay, so we're about to start our turn to Ulippi. So I'm going to enable the altitude intervention, get it down to 3,000 feet. And I'm actually going to lower 1 notch of flaps now to get the speed down and gives more time to descend down to 3,000 here. And you can see the glide slope is starting to come up now. This will go above us, and then we'll intercept the localizer, and then we can turn on approach mode, and then once this comes back down, hits the center, then the plane will automatically start to descend down onto the glide slope. So I'm actually going to change the heading here over to just about like that. Since this specific approach, I don't know why in Flight Simulator it doesn't like to work. So I'm just going to set a heading here so I can intercept that imaginary line, and I can heading hold there. Usually on most approaches, and the approaches you guys will do, this probably won't be a problem. You should just be able to leave on LNAV and follow this in and intercept the localizer, but in this specific approach it doesn't like to do that. Okay, so now we're coming up on the localizer here so we can turn on lock mode. And you'll see the plane will start to turn in to intercept this line coming out right here. And you can see that diamond coming in now, and the plane's going to attempt to keep this right in the center here to line us up with the runway. You see it just passed it barely. It should keep the turn going around to re-intercept that line and follow it in. And now that we have intercepted the localizer, I'm going to lower the landing gear, and I'm going to turn on approach mode so that I can follow the glide slope in. And then once this triangle comes down for the glide slope and hits here, the plane will start descending down towards the runway. And I'm getting pretty close, so I'm going to lower another notch of flaps. Pretty long runway, so I'm just going to set auto brake to 4 or 3. I start to see the plane turn to the right here, just ever so slightly to get back on track. And you see the autopilot is keeping that pink diamond centered, keeping us right on the center line of the runway here. That's the job of the localizer, and you can see the glide slope indicator starting to come down. Once it reaches here, the plane will start to descend, and that'll keep us on a glide path towards the runway. I'm going to start lowering more flaps now. And there's the glide slope. We've intercepted it, so we have control of the speed now. It's not going to automatically do that for us anymore because VNAV is off and approach mode is on. And you can see it's just going to keep that big triangle right in the center there, as well as this one, pink diamond. Lower another notch of flaps here. I'm going to reduce the speed down to the ref speed you can see right on here. I'm going to take over by hand soon, so I'm going to get ready to lower all the flaps. So while the flaps are coming down, and drop the speed down. 160 should do for now. you can just see the autopilot's just keeping those diamonds in the center as best as it can. This is a pretty large airplane, so it's a little bit difficult for the autopilot to make some small corrections, but that's just the way it is. Okay, I'm going to bring it down to the ref speed, right over here again. Oh, that went too far.
1,000.
Disengage the autopilot here and fly in the rest by hand. So we'll get ready to disengage the auto throttle as well. A little bit low. Bit of a crosswind here. Gauge the reserve reversers. Bit of a long landing too, but that's fine. Able to stop in time. Just gonna go for that taxiway, but I feel like we're a little too fast for that. And there we go. So that's how to do a approach and ILS in the 747 in Flight Sim 2020. Thanks for watching. If I was able to help you in any way, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And also, if you have any tutorial requests, leave them in the comments and I'll try my best to make them.